It's time to have your say. Welcome back to the Q&A. Ask SCW will be answering your questions in the wrestling community straight after this. Coming up on today's show, I'm going to be answering questions on WWE, AEW, and much, much more, including how I would book AEW Trios Championships in a tournament when they get introduced, of course. Going to be giving my take on Asuka versus Becky Lynch, that storyline in WWE right now. Also with MJF and Wardlow. Going to be talking about who I'd like to see on the Broken Skull sessions. And to kick things off, we'll be talking about Candice LeRae and Johnny Gargano. So if this is the place to you, then please like, share, and subscribe to SCW. And you can be involved on the next episode as well. Drop one question, just one, in the comments below with the hashtag AskSCW. I know to include it in the next episode and give you a shout out as well. Alternatively, you can drop a question for me on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, all should be up on your screen right about now. But without further ado, let's get on with our first question this week. And it comes from Martin Lorenzo Carrillo asking, at this time, what would you like to see from Candice LeRae and Johnny Gargano together? Also, would staying in WWE be better for them or not? Great question to kick things off. Of course, Candice LeRae is now a free agent. Her contract has expired from WWE. Johnny Gargano's did expire earlier this year. Both of them, of course, recently became parents as well. So, yeah, together they should be united. And, of course, being a family is very, very important. But when they do decide to come back to the ring, would they be better staying together and being in WWE? Or should they try something new? Well, we know their relationship with WWE has been very good over the years they've been with the company. I believe, according to Dirt Sheet Rumors, that, of course, their relationship is still very good with the company, even though they are now free agents. So they could very well go back to WWE. They could choose to. But looking at NXT, and I think they've always been preferred to being in NXT, WWE wants this sort of new, fresh NXT 2.0, which I don't think Gargano and Candice LeRae fit quite well in. I think they would probably prefer them to be on a Raw and a SmackDown. So I think that would make the decision a bit more difficult, if you want, for the Garganos at this point. Do they want to go travelling around the country, the grueling schedule that WWE brings, or would they prefer to work in a different company? And I think they could go with another opportunity. I think more than likely they could both end up in AEW. I think All Elite Wrestling could be the home because so many former NXT guys that were there for the long haul, for the black and gold, have ended up in All Elite Wrestling. I would expect Gargano and Candice LeRae at some point to be two of them going forward. Could even Johnny Gargano be the Joker, actually, for the Owen Hart Cup, which is going to be actually starting properly this Wednesday. I certainly don't believe that he will be, but he certainly will be a top contender. My prediction will be Cesaro, but I do think eventually Johnny Gargano will be All Elite, and it could be as soon as in this tournament. We'll have to wait and see. So, yeah, that's my prediction. They could go back to WWE. I think they'd be fine going back there, but I expect them in AEW. Next question comes from Noob and Co. What does Becky mean why Asuka didn't hold her end of the deal? Will we see more story between Asuka and Becky, like why Becky didn't choose Asuka as a replacement against Ronda, or why she didn't pick Asuka as her opponent for WrestleMania 35? Really interesting question, this one. Now, there will be more story to play with these two, but I don't think it's going to go as far back as that. I think the birth of this story actually comes from 2020, of course, around WrestleMania 36 time, and of course, especially with Money in the Bank. But my personal opinion, very quickly, I'm really enjoying this rivalry so far. I'm loving what they're doing with Becky Lynch and with Asuka coming in as well. Why she's not holding her end of the deal? So Becky Lynch, of course, found out around WrestleMania 36 that she was going to become a mother. So she realized that she couldn't be the fighter anymore, and she had to go away and become a mum, and she left Asuka to be the warrior in the meantime. Of course, Asuka winning Money in the Bank, and of course, opening that briefcase, found the Raw Women's Championship. And Becky basically is saying that she had faith in Asuka. She believed in Asuka to be the Raw Women's Champion while she was away, still being champion when she came back to carry that division, and probably, arguably, give the championship back to Becky Lynch. I think that's what the intention is, but Asuka didn't do that. Now, she was a long-term Raw Women's Champion, but she lost that championship, and of course, well, then she got injured. She wasn't even there when Becky returned. Now, granted, Becky was away for 16 months, and for that reason, Becky had to win the championship off Bianca Belair instead, and of course then she swept and went back to Raw, but she'd been kind of a champion for 3 years non-stop when she was active in WWE, and kind of felt that, yes, the world had come crumbling down around her, the likes of talents like Bianca Belair had risen to the top, but, you know, now that Becky feels that the comeback story can start, why is Asuka now making her comeback at Becky's expense? It's almost as if, like, Becky's saying, well, no one's ready for this. Well, actually, nobody's ready for Asuka. So it almost seems like a lack of respect from Asuka in Becky's eyes. That's why the deal has not been kept here in Becky's eyes. And of course, you could argue in a way maybe she's got a point, but hey, this is a bit of naivety from Becky to think that someone could be a champion for 16 months. That's a long championship reign, by the way. Longer than Becky's if you actually split her championship times apart as well. So it's interesting how this story is going to play out, because it's sheer narcissism, arrogance, and if anything, really too high expectations for Becky Lynch. Asuka, you can't prevent injury. She's been out for a long time. She's now coming back. She's coming into the fold, and what a great way to come back, because let's be fair, Becky Lynch, it's always someone great to have a win against, and perhaps Becky is at her most vulnerable as well. And now get Asuka straight back in towards the top of the championship picture, so you can see where it fits for both sides. These are two big names in the Raw Women's division. The story plays out itself quite nicely. I'm looking forward to seeing where it goes next. Could it go as far back as saying, well, Asuka sees no respect back in the day, like you say. Why didn't she get the choice at WrestleMania 35? Of course, when you look back at it, of course, Becky was always going to choose Ronda, because she was supposed to have that match with Ronda at the Survivor Series in 2018. So that's, of course, why she always would have picked her first. But if you want to pick the meat and bones and try and find things out of that, certainly could be a fun watch and to see where it's going to go. I'm glad it's not on Backlash, by the way. I'm glad this has been dragged over, hopefully to another premium live event, maybe Hell in a Cell. That'd be quite fun to see, because there's more time for this story to play out, because so far, I think it's quite genius, actually. I'm really enjoying on Raw, because it's easy to just bring people back, throw them in the fold, nothing to do. This is a full-on storyline. I'm liking it. Next question comes from Mike, Atanahabs Mike, and he asks, what are your thoughts of Cody Rhodes being on the Broken Skull session? Who would you like to see as a future guest and isn't in the WWE currently? Kenny Omega, Christian Cage, Mickie James, and Dwayne The Rock Johnson would be great guests. Great question, this one, and what a great selection of guests you put forward there. I mean, of course, The Rock and Stone Cold, two of the biggest stars in the biggest era of WWE, sharing those stories would be a lot of fun. Mickie James would be great fun, especially as well with the Royal Rumble this year. Of course, the Forbidden Door of an Impact champion with Hardcore Country playing out. That'd be a fun story to listen to. Kenny Omega, of course, being all elite, and also, as well as that, Christian Cage, someone that's had to go away from WWE a couple of times. Of course, having 7 years away from the ring would be a very interesting story. Now, before I give who I would like to see on there that isn't in WWE currently, I might give one or two that are as well. My thoughts with Cody being on there, why not? He's being presented as one of the biggest stars in wrestling now that he's come back to WWE. They've almost promoting that he's been somewhere else and he's made a big deal of himself, and he's going to come in now as a big fish in a big pond, and there's a lot of discussion to be had regarding Cody's journey. But I must admit, I haven't seen the episode yet. I'm really looking forward to checking it out. I've just not had the opportunity yet, so if anyone has seen it, let me know in the comments below. Is it worth a watch? Like I imagine it will be. But people that I'd like to see on the show at some point, I think Sting would be awesome. Of course, you look through the 90s and stuff with them being in WCW together, and also perhaps never getting Sting versus The Undertaker. Just thoroughly would be fascinating. Just hearing about his time in WWE in general as well would be quite fun. I'd quite like to see Eric Bischoff. Now, I know that was actually mentioned as well in the comments of you asking that question. Of course, in hindsight, going back to 1995, where Eric Bischoff didn't see anything in Stone Cold, well, hindsight is a wonderful thing, but Stone Cold going on to be the biggest star in the industry, and of course them sharing a feud and sharing a ring as well, I think that could be a lot of fun. Technically not on WWE's screens right now, but of course he's rumored to have signed with the company just recently. Bret the Hitman Hart, I think it'll be a fascinating one as well. I'm always interested to hear what Bret has to say, and of course these two had a fantastic feud going through 96 and 97, of course going with that infamous double turn submission match at WrestleMania 13, and one that is clearly in WWE and going against what you're asking as a question, but I'm going to give it as an answer anyway. I really want to see Paul Heyman on one of these one day. Paul Heyman is just someone I've always looked up to and just think he's in the wrestling world, he's a genius in my opinion, whether it's with ECW, whether it's, he's playing his character on WWE TV each and every week with Brock Lesnar and the Bloodline. For me, Heyman has always been gold, so for me, that's a fascinating discussion that I'd like to hear, especially as well when you look at the fact they had a brief time together in ECW as well, perhaps even helped shape of what we got with the character of Steve Austin as he came in to WWE. Next question coming from Southern Pro Wrestling, asking, if you was going to book the AEW Trios Championships, what would your brackets look like? And here is their fantasy booking as well. And they've got a House of Black against the Dark Order, Death Triangle against Andrade, Rouge and Dragon Lee, the Blackpool Combat Club against Best Friends Trent and Chuck Taylor, along with a bit of New Japan influence of Rocky Romero, and of course as well we've got the Jericho Appreciation Society against Eddie Kingston, Santana and Ortiz. So much fun, this question, and looking at your brackets there, that's a lot of fun as well. A lot of personal rivalries going on in amongst that. Very well thought and put together, I think, with all those sort of rivalries there. For myself personally, I've not gone with match graphics or anything like that for this. I'm just going to kind of explain it for you, and just goes to show the depth that AEW have to do Trios Championships as well, because I wanted to do something a little bit different to what you did as well. So my first match will be Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks. Of course, Kenny coming back eventually when these championships will come around, because I believe Tony Khan wants Kenny Omega involved with them to go against Eddie Kingston, Santana and Ortiz. Will be an opening round match. Then they would face the winners of the Jericho Appreciation Society and the Blackpool Combat Club. So we can still get the idea of, if Kingston and Jericho get through, they get each other in the next round. Of course, Kenny and the Bucks, of course, with the Elite, their experience in New Japan, a dream match idea as well. They could be against the Blackpool Combat Club in the semi-finals of it as well. I think would be a lot of fun. Going on the other half of the bracket, I'm going to go Death Triangle against House of Black. Just get it personal, get it out there, get in the opening round. Just get something to really stick your teeth into in that opening round, and they can take on the winners then of Adam Cole and of course Kyle O'Reilly, Bobby Fish, the Undisputed Elite, at the bottom of the bracket against the Jurassic Express and Christian Cage, because, well, at some point all these Jungle Boy losses are going to lead to Christian turning on him. I'm looking forward to when that will come along, and they will be, I think, kind of suitable first round opponents for Adam Cole and Co. And of course, Adam Cole and them have faced off before, with Adam Cole and of course Red Dragon usually coming out on top. So for me, that's kind of how I'd play it out. I think it'd be kind of fun brackets. My way would be the ultimate final, of course, Kenny and the Bucks going against Adam Cole and Red Dragon. I think that would be really, really cool as a final match. But yeah, let me know how everyone else would book it in the comments below. And do you like this fantasy booking? It's just a little bit of something to throw to go. But going off your sets of teams, my sets of teams there's a lot of trios. Tony Khan, what are you waiting for? Get these titles in AEW right now. Next question comes from Anthony New. If Ronda doesn't beat Charlotte at WrestleMania Backlash, who do you see dethroning Charlotte for the SmackDown Women's title? Really interesting question, this one, because I'm going to be honest with you, I haven't considered any other alternative than Ronda Rousey winning the SmackDown Women's Championship tonight. So let's say by some chance that, and this is recorded by the way before WrestleMania Backlash, that Charlotte does retain the championship. Who would dethrone her? I think more than likely it would be Lacey Evans, but Raquel Rodriguez could be a shout as well. But it does feel like of those two right now, Lacey Evans is the one that's been getting more TV time and, you know, more of a prominent role on SmackDown over the last few weeks. It feels like her segments are very important, of course, as they should be, with, you know, her sharing her story, the background that she's had. The only thing I would say is I do think that will actually be Charlotte's next feud, regardless of whether she keeps the SmackDown Women's Championship or not. And I'm not going to lie, I maybe have a few concerns of how that storyline may play out on SmackDown Weekly, but hey, we'll get to that when it comes to it, shall we? But if I had to pick someone, if it isn't Ronda Rousey, then I'll go Lacey Evans. Speaking of WrestleMania Backlash, Elijah Washington asking, do I think there'll be any returns or debuts for this pay-per-view this evening? To be honest, no, I don't see any of that happening tonight at WrestleMania Backlash, but I do think we could get a new member of Edge's group in Judgment Day. That could be what gives Edge the victory, seeing as Damian Priest isn't around at ringside. Who would that be? Well, in my predictions, I did predict Tommaso Ciampa could be the one. Of course, I would like to see Rhea Ripley in that group at some point, but I don't think it kind of fits at this pay-per-view or premium live event if you prefer. Some people in the chat when we did the live stream did speculate the idea of Finn Balor doing so. Hey, that would be one for the books. It would be very interesting if that did play out. I think though, if that was to happen, it should happen at a later date. Last questions this week coming from Randy Sam. How do I feel about the Wardlow and MJF feud? Do I see Jade Cargill being a future AEW Women's World Champion? And how do I feel about WWE being impressed with W. Morrissey? Absolutely, Jade Cargill will be a future AEW Women's World Champion. It's a matter of when, not if. And of course, she's TBS champion at the present stage. Would she lose that championship, or would she just vacate it to go for the World Championship? Of course, that's also something that remains to be seen, but she definitely will be a future AEW Women's World Champion. Quickly, with the other feuds, yeah, MJF and Wardlow, I'm really enjoying it. I think it's been really well put together. Always, every single time someone feuds with MJF, they've got to go for a month of MJF's hand-picked opponents before they can get to him. Happened to CM Punk, it happened to Chris Jericho, and now you can add Wardlow to the list. And just the way they've kind of done everything with him, where he's been in handcuffs every week, coming to the ring with security, having no music as well, it's had the real desired effect of getting Wardlow over as what could be a real top babyface in the company. He's also getting over as Goldberg-esque as well, and I'm loving, you know, his symphony of powerbombs that he's hitting each and every week. I was a little bit disappointed it was only one powerbomb to W. Morrissey, but I do kind of see both sides of the argument I've seen on social media. One saying, look, it's only one powerbomb to pin W. Morrissey, but of course at the same time, he doesn't pin superstars usually after one powerbomb, where perhaps he could. Maybe it's one powerbomb to an Impact star out of respect rather than actually burying that talent, just powerbombing them over and over again. Maybe it was Impact that made the play to not have W. Morrissey completely destroyed by Wardlow, so perhaps that's the case for it. But last case and point for this, MJF saying that there'll be a couple of clauses next week to be put in the contract in Long Island. I can't wait to see how that's going to play out. And yeah, I'm expecting Wardlow to have a hand tie behind his back, maybe both of them as well, perhaps even handcuffed in the match. I can see this when it comes to the comeback moment of him just breaking out of the cuffs, the crowd going absolutely mental, and then of course Wardlow putting MJF away. It's going to be a real exciting one. I'm looking forward to it. And yes, I did see on Wrestle Talk that there is interest apparently from WWE in W. Morrissey, but according to Tom Colicue, it is minor interest after that match. So I don't necessarily expect WWE to go completely out of their way to bring W. Morrissey in, but perhaps maybe they might watch a bit more of his work in Impact Wrestling going forward, because that's where you can see him. I have seen as well on the rumor mill, I believe was Wrestle Talk saying again that he's on a pay-per appearance still right now in Impact rather than an extended time with the length of contract. So interestingly, if WWE wants to get him, they could probably go out and make an offer, but I personally think he will remain in Impact Wrestling for the foreseeable future. But that's all we've got time for today here on Ask SCW. Thank you everyone so much for your questions as always. Drop a comment in the comments below what you thought of any of today's topics as well. I look forward to interacting with you. If you've liked this video as well, then please like, share, and subscribe as well. It really does help the channel here on YouTube. More videos will be on the way during the week as well. And of course, why not check out the latest SCW Rewind that's on the channel right now. Big thank you to Barry from Nonstop Wrestling Chat who joined me for WWE's King of the Ring 1994 when Owen Hart won the King of the Ring and pronounced himself the King of Hearts. A very fitting tribute as well, since we have the Owen Hart Cup going on in AEW right now. But that's all from me anyway. Thank you for watching. Check out these videos on the side of the screen. I'll see you soon here on youtube.com. All the best.